Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August the 7th till 13th, 2023. We have a really active and quite dynamic sky at play, and this is one of those weeks where it really favors certain breakthroughs, especially those breakthroughs that we have been working on, desiring, or adapting in life to achieve them, that are stemming from the past. Now, the past can represent, more distant past, of course, because we do have Uranus very active this week. And even though Uranus is not retrograde, the conversations it holds with Venus retrograde, this does represent some elements coming back from the past, but it can also represent breakthroughs with our very short term goals and ambitions, which we have started, for example, in March, in April, at even the beginning of the year, and for some reason it just couldn't come together. It just couldn't bring the momentum of the breakthrough, and this is one of those weeks where that breakthrough can actually come knocking at the door. But this might take some time to actually install itself in our lives, because it is the week that follows when we have a really powerful and quite shocking, quite mobilizing new moon in the sign of Leo, but also other celestial conversations that are really gonna bring the tides of fate, so to speak, where fate might come to our help, come to our advantage to, as I said earlier, help us out with the big and important breakthroughs that we need in our lives. And this is where it's strong Virgo energy. So not necessarily those breakthroughs which are gonna guarantee us, a life of easiness, but rather those breakthroughs which can get us back on track, which can get us back on in the flow, better said, so we can start or resume or continue building and working towards our future. And this is where the futuristic part of the energy is, I want to say, just an allure, just a mirage in the present moment, because Pluto has retrograded back into Capricorn, and it is deconstructing the old order, better said. But when Pluto will go direct and go enter back into the sign of Aquarius, so January 2024, that will be the moment when the future will be actually here, in a sense that we will be feeling the present of it, where the future is not just an obscure thought, but we're already living in it. And also, this is one of those weeks where we have the Lion's Gate portal. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of the representation of that energy, because, in ancient Egypt, many thousands years ago, the setup, even the astrological setup, was so very different. Yet, in this modern age, I can also imagine how every being's quantum entanglement can evoke, or better said, resurrect the Lion's portal's energy expression, so to speak. So this will be quite an intense week. Let us begin with the 7th of August, so Monday, the very beginning of the week, when we do have the Sun conversing in a conversation of tension, a square with Jupiter. Now, I need to highlight this aspect because this can be quite difficult, because Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Taurus can make this expansion feel a little bit desperate, because it is our five senses, it is our basic needs, it is our financial sector, it is where we embody everything that we have in spirit, right? That's the energy of Taurus. And squaring the Sun in Leo, the Sun in Leo was all about the self, self-expression, identity, ego, the inner child, the expression of our joys, our passions, our pleasures, our sensuality, why not? So when these two planets converse in tension, well, desire can, come as a strong force of temptation. Now, the biggest part of this energy is not to overdo it. Whatever may appear in your life, because Jupiter can be quite fortunate, it can represent a momentum, yet we need to be aware that we're under Venus retrograde, and Mercury also is in shadow. So nothing is really what it seems, nothing is what it feels like. However it presents to us in the present moment, that's absolutely wonderful, fine, if we observe it and not necessarily take drastic, risky action. Because the sun, not just the sun, but the sign of Leo in its integrity does rule the risks that we take. Many times it's like a blessed risk where we just feel it in our hearts that we need to do something, maybe unusual, more extreme action, gesture, etc. But it does get us in all the right positions, places, etc. But whenever we have like a conversation of tension, especially with Jupiter expanding it, we can really, really overdo it. So when it's like a love declaration to truly dish out your feelings for another person, this is where, make sure that the surprise factor that you might be planning is not extreme or is not something totally unusual, because it might not go the right way. If there are certain elements in your life which do ask you to invest, to take a risk, to spend big time, to, input all of your resources, energy, love, passions, whatever it may be. This is also where we need to be very, very careful, because if we overdo it, it will not really turn out the way we hoped. And let's just say it like that. But of course, this is even more, how should I say, risky if we overdo the expression of the self. Because the sun, especially in the sign of Leo, and especially reaching that 15 degrees, the half of the sign, that is where a planet is kind of active. Active because it really needs to, express its, how should I say, it's more balanced, it's more serious qualities. It's at the very middle of the sign. And when we translate this energy, this can come through as quite egoistic, quite narcissistic, quite selfish, quite self-centered. So this, without a doubt, is not gonna go very, very well. So we need to be very careful with this. Fortunately, Venus is not yet squaring Jupiter, because Venus has already squared Jupiter when she actually entered her shadow. She wasn't retrograde yet, she was still direct but in shadow. This is the second square that Venus is gonna be holding when, at the very end of the week with Jupiter. But the square that Venus will hold with Jupiter is truly the theme of next week. Venus will be squaring Uranus with precision this week, and that is also a kind of extreme expression of this energy. But of course that can have very different expressions and manifestations. But let's remain at the Sun squaring Jupiter. So anything that has to do with the self-expression, our desires, our wants, let's not be way too desperate. Let's take it easy. Let us discipline this energy, because that way we can make sure that Jupiter doesn't overdo it. that we don't overdo it. For example, even if you're a very skilled, very talented individual who has quite a lot to share, even a lot of love, Leo, if you try way too hard, if you truly have no bounds, when expressing this, when gifting this, that can be a very eclipsing energy where you just eclipse everyone. You know, your self expression is too intense, so that will not go, very well. And the same goes with any kind of Leo activities, even declarations of love, even self indulgence, even, immersing into the joys of life. We do need to take it in a bit disciplined way this week. So moving on, oh, and I also wanted to mention that the sun is extremely important this week because it's not just the sun solo in his home ruling sign, but it also has Venus and Black Moon Lilith in the same part of the sky. And it is also this week when Venus retrograde and Black Moon Lilith meet in a conjunction again. So, this is quite an intense, from an emotional perspective, from a heart-centered perspective, from the perspective of love and creativity even, and passions and our desires, of course, Venus, quite an intense energy that can actually go in different ways. It can be a surprise for us, but we need to truly have patience and see what the surprise turns out to be in its final form. Usually the surprise factor shows its true self when Venus stopped her retrograde, so the 3rd of September. But to be extra sure, if when Venus starts already moving forward on her shadow path, so after the 3rd of September. And another really, really fortunate and, intense in a good way energy that we have at the very beginning of the week, so again, still Monday, is Jupiter trining Mars. This is an Earth trine, so this is quite important because Jupiter can represent everything that we deserve. It can represent our sense of justice. In the sign of Taurus, justice related to self-worth, to worth, to finances, to money, to everything that we sacrificed for our well-being. Again, that's also Taurian expression. Now that can come as a blessing in our lives. It can represent completions. It can represent where actually justice brings something favorable in your life, like a court ruling. The legislation changed, and under the new legislation, you are entitled to certain things because Virgo is the sign of discrimination. Now, when I say discrimination, that can have a positive expression where we discern, we truly use this, what I call discrimination, to discern right from wrong, to discern, the different elements composing something, so we know our relation to it. The negative part of the discrimination is, where labels and judgments and prejudices are cast, and there it is without even second thought, second feeling. It is where we discriminate because our minds already have something labeled. That's the more negative expression. Now, with the trine of Jupiter, if you have been, for example, the victim of some kind of exclusion, discrimination, purely personally or collectively, this energy may bless you, especially if you've took some action. In this sense, when Jupiter was in the sign of Aries, especially. Now, in other sense, this energy can also be good for, finding a job, finding a source of income, something that you possess, a value, a skill, a talent, even if it's not like, how should I say, official. even if you don't have diploma and relevant studies. But if life kind of put you into the mastery, Virgo, Mars and Virgo is all about mastery and repetition. If you do something over and over and over and over again, there's no way for you not to grow, not to master it. Even if it's not in a rather spiritual expression, just simply the mind, the brain, the nervous system. It goes into autopilot and you become better, more efficient, stronger. Like a valid example, if you know some shorts on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that, where there are incredible Chinese factory workers who like are 10 million times better than machines. They just have the reflex, if you know what I mean. That is Mars in Virgo, its most positive expression. Mastery, repetition, hard work basically does that to you, and willpower. So Jupiter can represent a blessing. But let's move on now to the most relevant day of this week, where it's the 8th of August, the Lion's Gate portal. Now this day, and I hope that I can manage to insert a chart into this video so you can see the celestial setup, because there is a lot happening in the sky. So the energies, the better said, the harmonics and the conversation between the planets does mark a rather important karmic moment, which also is, building up the energy, building up the momentum towards a future breakthrough. Now that breakthrough may be, this week or next week or later on in August. But it can also be when Pluto will start moving forwards and finally get out of Capricorn. It really, really depends on your personal situation, and for other people, the collective situation. What is happening in your local community, in your culture, in your country, in the local politics that you are basically, how should I say, influenced by. But let's get to the energy. So the first relevant energy is Venus conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith is the primordial instinct. She is a sensual, sexual energy, but also quite rebellious, quite intense in nature. There is a very strong wilderness to her. Black Moon Lilith is a lunar expression, so her nature, especially in astrology, is linked to the moon, to the soul, to the feeling. And even our feelings, our emotional world, does have strong primal core to it. You know what I mean? So there are times when feelings have, I want to say, a mind of their own, but this is exactly that kind of energy. And when she's conjunct Venus, it's quite rebellious. This is when you really, really know what you want. You know what you desire. You know why Mercury is in Virgo. So we do process, we do understand. The mind is very, very active. So as I said, it's crystal clear to you what it is that you desire, what it is that you wish, what it is that you want, what it is that kind of makes you happy, makes you feel the most positive embodiment of Leo, when life is like an eternal summer basically. But it is just the clarity, this is just the feeling, just the knowledge. It doesn't mean yet that you are having it. And at the same time, Venus retrograde, if something is in your life which is under the Venusian microscope, well, you know why you don't like it. You know everything that basically goes against your tastes, goes against your heart of hearts, goes against your standards, your values, what you love. May that be anything, a person, a romance, a relationship, a job, a career, a living situation. So anything Venusian is included here. Now both of these planets are squaring Uranus. The square is quite precise, quite exact. Even though Venus will perfect this second square she has later on in the week, But at this Lionsgate portal, it's already very exact. So Uranus brings the element of surprise, Uranus brings the element of awareness, Uranus brings the element of shock, and basically it's like a reality check where, the awareness of whatever is working or is not working in your life. For example, whatever it is that you truly love and you know that you love it, Uranus might bring, from the sign of Taurus, of course, an awareness of what it is that you need to do to get there, to be it, to embody it, to achieve it, etc. And Taurus is quite practical, quite physical. Taurus is real life, down to earth matters. So this awareness, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's like shocking, like mind blowing, really, do I have to go through all of that? Do I have to wait this much? Do I have to become this and that person? Sometimes, especially with the sun in its domicile, you know what I mean? It's home. Yes, sometimes the key is not necessarily what we need to do, what we need to achieve, what we need to buy, what we need to invest into. The key is to become, to, how should I say, not just embody, but first of all, like the sun, to create it, to fuse it like a stellar fusion within ourselves, within our hearts, Leo, within our inner suns, to be it, to feel that we are actually it, or to grow into it, the inner child. And when we are actually it, from within, in feeling, in heart, sometimes Uranus, even in mind, because Uranus is the planet of higher intelligence, so we cannot deny the mental element here. So to be it, that's when things will actually start shifting in that sense. And Uranus can sometimes act in a very unusual way, because it is the planet of the unusual, where it gives us a taste of, oh, this is what you want, this is what you dream of, this is what you like, here, have it, have a taste. And it is only then when we have the taste, when we realize that we need to still grow. We need to train certain muscles to be stronger, to be more durable, resilient, for us to actually be able to hold that which we desire, basically. Sometimes this is the Uranian lesson. It dishes out a sample, and it is an invitation for us to grow into that person who can actually carry it, who can live it, who can embody it, who can have it. Because very many times, we desire, and our desire is the most authentic thing for us, because it's the soul. But we are not just a soul and a heart. We are so very many other things. And it is the other things that many times have to grow into the person who can hold it. Sometimes, let me give you an example. A poor man, a poor person, wishes great wealth and prosperity, but, even if they have a miracle, even if they have a big moment of infinite fortune, when they win the lottery or something just falls into their lap, chances are that will not help them, that will destroy them, because they just are not accustomed to carry that weight, to carry that basically split of dimensions, split of personal reality. One day you're conditioned by something that probably you knew all your life, and then the total opposite comes, So we need muscles for this. When I say muscles, not physical ones, but to be able to carry it. Pluto, going, finally, the final degrees of Capricorn, for the last time, more or less. And Capricorn is exactly our structure, our bones, that which basically is the solid in our body and holds it. That is not just something physical, it's also ethereal, psychological, on a soul level, where Pluto is the crystalline emotion, the crystallized emotion, the crystallized feeling, the crystallized thought, the knowledge of who it is that we are. That needs to be stable, that needs to be crystalline, so strong, like the calcium in our bones, for us to be able to hold our most authentic expression. And our most authentic expression is, without a doubt, having everything that Venus needs, wants, and desires. Of course, with desire, desire is also the root of all evil, the root of all bad. So, put it into context, put it into healthy context, not all the Black Moon Lilith stuff that we desire, but rather the opposite, the authentic, the true, the healthy and balanced stuff that we desire. Now, if this wasn't enough, both Black Moon Lilith and Venus conjunct together are also holding a trine to Aries, goddess of discord, goddess of rebellion, in the sign of Aries. So that's quite a powerful energy. Now, of course, both of these planets did hold the same conversations, when Venus started going retrograde, and this is another taster of this. So this energy, how it translates, especially that we must remember the square with Uranus is ongoing at the same time. Rebellious energy, when the heart wants to break through, when something, a deep feeling, a deep emotion, a deep creational energy, a deep love just bursts out from our hearts. And that does something. Well, the first thing it does is exactly brings us into a certain kind of awareness. Why we deserve something, why we don't deserve something, what it is that we need to do to have something. Now, collectively speaking, individually it's quite obvious. But collectively speaking, this can be quite a rebellious energy. This is where what people want, what people will, their sovereign expressions, cannot be countered by politics, by laws. Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. Jupiter in Taurus can also be certain laws which kind of make the economy, make the financial element, collectively speaking, stable, to serve the many. You know what I mean? But we both know that Jupiter is a very subjective planet, so it's an illusion. And people are gonna go against these laws, these regulations, these rules that simply do not serve them. That they do not serve their common sense. They do not serve their truth. Because ultimately what truth is, it's not scientists. It is not academics. It is not great professors and researchers who actually determine what the truth is. It is actually the collective of people. Basically, the many do determine what truth is. And even if, let's say, an individual, a small group hold a more objective truth, that doesn't matter. Because it is the many, through their beliefs, Jupiter, who say what is the truth and when. And everyone, everything has to respect that. The divine respects that. It always does. It does respect what the many, what the collective believe. It always does. That's why we get what we believe. And I must take a very short detour to exemplify this. Like, let's go back to 2020, the COVID situation. And let's ignore the astrology of it, the meeting of Saturn and Pluto and Ceres, the Sun and Mercury and Capricorn. Let's go back a bit further in the past years, the 2010 and from on there onwards, the zombie movies, the contagion outbreak movies, our collective fantasy that microbes do get us and do cause a major disruption and shutdown, and the zombie apocalypse movies. Well, we didn't have the zombies, but we did have everything else. Wasn't that our collective fantasy, our collective illusion, our collective belief, our collective art a negative art, but still art that actually manifested. This is how we can see that the divine collective reality does respect the belief of the many. So this can turn out in a different way when the many say, I don't agree with your rules, I don't agree with your politics, I don't agree with your principle, with your vision, with your methodology, with your practical solutions. Even if those solutions are safe, sound, working, meticulous, Virgo-like, if the collective does not agree with them, they don't matter. So this is where the rebellion, the outburst, the volcanic expression of this energy can play out on the world stage, and we see this as protests, as strikes, as whatever is happening in France, whatever is happening in the Netherlands, whatever is happening, in the diverse parts of Europe. Now, there's much more to the Lionsgate portal than this, because exactly at this time, the moon is conjunct Jupiter. So, exactly as I said, the justice of it, and the whatever it is that we believe collectively is that much more felt, strongly felt by, this moon. The moon in mundane astrology is the feeling, the collective emotion of the people, basically. If they're pleased, not pleased, how do they react to it emotionally, what it means to them. So Taurus is basically money, how resources, economy, the basically your local balance of economy and values in your country are looking like in the present. That's what we react to. And if that wasn't enough, both of these planets do trine Mercury in the sign of Virgo. Again, a really, really, really positive trine, because this trine does tell us that there is solution to every problem. If we brainstorm, if we use our intelligence, and if we use the discernment of Virgo, and what I said at the beginning of this video, the positive kind of discrimination, when we know what right from wrong is, when we take into consideration all of the experiences of the past and know what definitely doesn't work, but we also know what has a high chance of working. We use the power of the mind to its maximum and its most harmonious expression, then a lot is gonna be done. This is one of the breakthrough energies, and this is kind of short-term breakthrough, because we must not forget that Mercury will go retrograde, and we hold this exact same type of conversation with Jupiter again later on. So this is just Mercury setting up the stage for its retrograde. Chances are communication, good news. As I said, you're entitled to something, the knowledge, the information of that enters your life, and you will have to work with this under the Mercury retrograde season. So this is first just like the knowledge, the communication, the information of what a breakthrough might represent in your life. It is really good for job, as I said, anything to do with work, service, Virgo, everything that has to do with healing, healthcare, your own, journey to take care of your medical problems is also good for that. It's good for nutrition, it's good for changing habits, it's good for a lot of things actually. And where I want to go finally, it's not just Mercury trining this Jupiter, because Mercury is part of a triple conjunction. We have the dwarf planet Orcus at 14 degrees of the sign of Virgo. Orcus is, the guardian of the abyss. Orcus, this sounds scary, but it's actually quite positive, because it guards the infernal realms. It does not permit the infernal expression to get out of hand. And it also is the planet which creates, which constructs something in place of that which is corrupted, which usually Pluto targets. That which is corrupted, that which is false, that which is fake, that which is, I don't even know what word to use, not very good, basically. That which Pluto destroys, Orcus replaces. And that is exactly why it has to guard the abyssal realms. So, any kind of invasive energy, thought, emotion, magic, why not, cannot access it. So, Orcus is one of the power players, very, very positive, problem solving in the sign of Virgo. The way I understand Orcus and Virgo is the deep, deep intelligence of the divine buried within our genes, and also the intelligence of the gut. The other power player is Pallas Athena, a really, really wonderful problem solving energy, especially in Virgo. Tactics, the power of the mind, the power of, calculations, scenarios, really using our mental strength in the most empowered and positive way. And finally, Mercury. So these three planets conjunct together, that's like a massive intellectual boost. That is like a hyper intelligence coming from deep within our being, from within our genes, from within our instincts, from within our gut. But it's not primal in the sense that it doesn't stay primal. It is interpreted, perceived, translated by that Mercury, by the mind. But of course, for us to have the best possible translation, we need to wait until Mercury goes retrograde so we get the larger themes of this retrograde playing out. And the final result, the big moment when we are already embracing this product of our intelligence, is when I imagine both Mercury and Venus are out of their retrogrades, so in the autumn. And this triple conjunction is trined by Jupiter in the sign of Taurus. So this is why I do believe that this is a really, really positive energy. This is like a breath of fresh air when either, as I said, a changing legislation brings you into a more favorable position, when justice is served one way or another, or when you see the light, you see the solution, you see both the big picture, but most importantly the small picture, the nitty-gritty, how you're getting to the big picture, and that is pushing you forward, that is giving you what you need. And why not? This can also represent some resources, some help, some form of getting there, immediate problem solving. And another energy specific to this Lionsgate portal is Juno trining Neptune. Juno is in the sign of Cancer. Juno is the asteroid which rules over partnerships, which connections, and and represents the fairness and the dynamics, the codependency in this. Neptune, trining Neptune, Neptune in the sign of Pisces. Now, Neptune is still displaying its more shadowy qualities, the illusion, the past, the grip of the past emotion, the suffering, the pain. It's in a very delicate part of Pisces, because in this region we also have certain fixed stars which are not very benevolent, let's say like that. So it's the victimhood. It is basically everything that we cannot bypass, everything that we, don't have solved yet with the power of our faith, with the power of spirit, with the power of self-knowledge, because it's ultimately Pisces, the realm of the unconscious. And that might make us a little bit pessimistic. That might make us a little bit doomy and gloomy. Needless to say that Saturn is also in the sign of Pisces, and it makes the energy of Pisces that much more intense in feeling and persistent. You know, the feeling is ever persisting. It is almost constant. And no, this isn't my interpretation. This is astrologer Rick Levine, or I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but I think it's Rick Levine, who says there is a semi-square between. There is. He doesn't just say it. There is actually a semi-square between Saturn and Chiron, and it is, of course, aggravating Chiron, according to his interpretation, where whatever is the theme of our wounding, we keep feeling that and feeling that and feeling that, and it doesn't go away. It's just like a constant, and of course, because Saturn in the sign of Pisces, it is our long-term healing. It has to close the chapter of our wounding for the long term, because Pisces is the sign of finalities. But it is where when, let's say you have some kind of case, but when this is finally solved, it's going into the archive. Pisces is that archive. Sometimes, very rarely, that file is viewed again in the archive for different reasons, usually for historic reasons, for us to learn from the past Pisces. Other times it is needed for something else, but it's quite rare when a closed file is re-accessed from the archive. So that is why that Chiron Saturn semisquare is so heavy and constant, because it's really insisting that we either heal our wounding or get out of victim position, Saturn and Pisces. So Juno, anyway, going back to Juno trining Neptune, this is really good for soul connections. You know what I mean? Because Cancer is the sign of the mother, it is the sign of emotional stability, sign of roots, sign of family. So Neptune and Juno in their harmonious trine can, you know, create such a momentum, let's say, when we get connected to a soulmate, when we get connected to a person who will be our future family, let's say. But it can also represent help, faith, hope, everything that is the positive side of Neptune. You know, spirituality, unconditional love, basically, coming from friends, from family, from partners, from, you know, people who deeply love us and people who want to have us in their lives long term. Juno in Cancer. So it can play, and but we must not forget that Neptune is retrograde. So not all is what it seems. You know what I mean? But we're speaking about a trine, so of course love is there, support is there, belief is there, faith is there, from other people, from family, from very, very close friends, from soulmates. But, you know, it's just water trine. Love is not enough. But love motivates, love gives power. Love is basically everything when you're in the attitude of it, when you're, you know, actually working towards something. Then love is the fuel, love is the motor, love is the catapult, basically, that you need. Now, this is how Lionsgate Portal looks like. A lot of beautiful energy, a lot of trines, a lot of problem solving, a lot of support. This does promise future breakthrough, but it's conditioned by this Venus, a Black Moon Lilith conjunction where they square Uranus. It's conditioned by our authenticity, by embodying our truth, by not, you know, taking any prisoners when it comes to the truth of our hearts, when it comes to our value. And this is where this Uranus and Leo square, when I say Leo, of course I mean Black Moon Lilith and Venus, and later on in the week the Sun. So this is Leo, basically Leo. Um, this is where we must also try our very hardest and express somehow or use somehow or give a bit of focus on our talents, on our skills. And this isn't the kind of talent and what Virgo can do, repetition and mastery. This is the kind of talents where it's about Uranus and Taurus. What we truly were born with, what we were gifted with. Those kind of talents and values and beauty within us that were given to us by nature, that we had from the very first breath. Okay, this is a bit exaggerated, you know, because this Uranus Jupiter square does influence me as well. My interpretation of the sky, I do exaggerate a little bit, but you know, most people, I don't want to say everyone, but most people, most beings do have something special, something valuable, something Taurian that nature gifted them from birth. It's in their genes. They hold this, they possess it, they embody it. Now, when that was swept away in the realm of the unconscious, well, this is when Uranus dishes it up. This is it when Uranus, you know, fires it up like a mud volcano. Taurus, mud, and volcano. Taurus's esoteric ruler is Vulcanus. It's not a planet, it doesn't exist in physical reality, but it really, really highlights the volcanic nature of Taurus, and with Uranus in it, definitely something is gonna burst out from us, from our hearts. And if we get to become aware what is our greatest skill, what is our greatest talent, that is what we must now not overdo with self-expression, but we cannot ignore it, if you know what I mean. We do need to do something with it, one way or another, because that is our greatest authenticity, when we also embody our primal, our nature-given gifts, skills, talents, whatever value it lies inside of us. Now, moving on the 9th, we do have the second square exact between Venus, retrograde at this time, and Uranus. So I'm not going to speak about this because I spoke at the beginning of the video. This is just when the moment of surprise, the moment of epiphany, of awareness becomes that much stronger. And again, let's be careful with overspending, big investments, taking big risks. Even when it's aesthetics changes, hairdo, wardrobe, tattoos especially, etc., etc. Moving on to the 10th, this is when Mercury in the sign of Virgo perfects its trine with Jupiter. This is the first one because Mercury will go retrograde. We must remember that. So good news, positive, blessed communication, solutions to problems, the plans, the methodology. There is some good news, optimism without a doubt in the air. Now the 12th is also very relevant because this is when the Sun in the sign of Leo, is trining Chiron, a moment of healing. Now it is a trine, absolutely, so it does promote the healing, our needs, our desires, our love for the self sufficient enough for us to heal or embark on a healing journey. But it's not a very easy energy. It's positive, but it's not easy because the wounds might be evoked, might be stirred up, because the Sun also is holding a square to Uranus. Now, if we ignore Chiron, that's not all that bad because life is full of surprises and we have to be a bit adventurous and take them on to make life enjoyable and fun. As long as you don't overdo it, of course. So the Sun square Uranus is not really, again, a good time to overdo self-expression because it can come through as narcissism, self-centered, selfishness. Neither is it a very good energy to embrace on extreme activities, even extreme sports, because it might go a bad way. But for other things, to enjoy, to taste, to sample, to be open for surprises, it is quite a good energy because it gets us out from our comfort zones, it gets us out from the stale, it gets us out from stagnation, especially emotionally speaking. And with Uranus in the sign of Taurus, we can never know how we might fall in love with the new things that we try. So be brave, but not foolish. But with the trying to Chiron, it might be external situations, external things that might evoke our wounds and our wounding, and this is where we need to make the decision and take the chance to truly heal ourselves, to truly focus on our integrity, our wholeness, and not to allow our wounds to basically hinder us, to stop us. But what our wounds are good at is for us to truly embrace and embody our deep life lessons and share them with others. So this aspect can sometimes invite all of us to be healers for other people, to defend other people, to be, I want to say, heroes, or people who do save the day, people who are saving races for those who have the same wounds for us. The mastery that we have input into our own, I don't want to say necessarily healing, but managing, coping with our wounding, well, those are basically proper methodologies, proper know-how, proper, modus operandi, basically, how we can help other people, advise them, guide them, communicate our own example to them, giving them an inspiration and giving them exactly the methodology for them to cope with their wounds, or for them to embrace their path towards healing. And what's even more important is that the Sun on the 12th of August is conjunct Venus, Venus retrograde. The conjunction is not exact, but it's operational. So the light of our consciousness, Venus, our pleasures, and especially the Venus retrograde themes that are already playing out in our lives. What is life inviting us to know? Do we love it? Do we want it? Do we desire it? How do we feel about it? So these are the Venus retrogrades in our lives playing out right now. And the conjunction with the Sun, the meeting with the Sun in the Sun's home sign, is making it that much more be in our awareness, be in our light, the light of our consciousness, for us to embody these wants, these needs, desires, these values that much more. So this is an aspect of clarity and also wisdom, because Sun trines Chiron, which means Venus also trines Chiron. But the trine Venus to Chiron is, how should I say, greater orb. So it's even less exact than that of the Sun, but still a healing, a regeneration of the heart, of our passion, of our sensuality, and everything Venusian. And moving on, another really strong energy on the 13th, which is quite delightful, is Mars trining Uranus. This is quite powerful because Mars is trine to Uranus, and this is the horoscope of next week. So not this week, but next week, it will also trine Pluto. So that means a grand Earth trine. This grand Earth trine is not exact, of course, and it's not gonna be exact to the degree, but it's very powerful, very, very relevant, and this is what promises the great breakthrough, especially Uranus trine Pluto. That's where things are finally ongoing, collectively and individually alike. And to me, this grand Earth trine does represent whatever we suffer through. The Uranus squaring the long term, Uranus squaring Saturn, in the past years, 2021, 2022, when Saturn was in Aquarius. Whatever we suffered through, whatever we learned, however it turned our lives upside down, it is now with this Uranus trining Pluto when we get the benefits from it, when we get to the blessing part, when we get, this is what I've built in my life and it's working and it's functional. And with Mars trining both of these planets from the grand Earth trine, of course, from Virgo, that's really, really positive, because Mars is focused, Mars is concentrated, Mars is there to build, to solve, to actually do the job to the perfection. Now, of course, Mars's ambitions are gonna die out very soon, as it will oppose Neptune. But before it does, it's a really, really, really powerful energy that gets us to breakthrough. Even if it's not an immediate breakthrough, as in next week, there it is, the breakthrough in your life, everything is no. But it gets us to the feeling of breakthrough, to the chance of the breakthrough, where the breakthrough is already working, ongoing in our lives. And then also at this 13th, the Sun conjunct Venus is exact. So a great moment of clarity, a great moment when we know what to do with the Venus retrograde expression in our lives, at least parts of it. And all of this energy is really good for love, for passion to reignite in our hearts. It is also good for, meeting other people, to be open to the collective, to be open to that which we might not have experienced or we might have shied away from until now in our lives or in the recent past. So this is quite a strong energy. It has a strong downside with the wounding, with the surprises, and with the pressure that is on us. And the pressure, don't get me wrong, is also because of the long-term square between Pluto and the nodes of the moon and Aries and Libra axis. But this is where that pressure finally can be met with power, some power that we have, where this harmonious conversations of Mars, the grand Earth trine next week, but also all of the trines that Mercury holds with Jupiter, with Mars holds with Uranus, with Venus holds with Aries, etc., etc. So there is a lot of breakthrough energy and love energy and creational energy in the sky. So thank you everyone for listening. I do hope that this was helpful and useful. If you'd like to support my channel, please like and share and subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to support me, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. This will help me, bring you horoscopes every single week. Thank you again. Until next time, bye for now.